Egypt, 1887. A woman digging near the Nile finds a clay tablet. Then another, then 50 more, then hundreds, covered in an unknown script. Scholars eventually realize what they are: diplomatic letters 3,000 years old. Letters from Hittite kings, from Babylon, from Mitanni, addressed to a pharaoh. A pharaoh that official Egyptian history insists never existed. His name had been chiseled off every monument in the country, deliberately. The letters came from here, a city built from nothing in 18 months. 50,000 people called it home. Then, in a single decade, they all left. Every stone eventually removed, every temple dismantled, every trace deliberately erased. Whoever this pharaoh was, he frightened Egypt so deeply they tried to delete him. Not just his name, his idea, the most dangerous idea in Egyptian history. Who was he? What did he do? And why did it terrify an entire empire? To understand what happened, you first need to understand what Egypt was. For 1,500 years, Egypt had been the most powerful civilization on Earth. Its armies conquered from Sudan to Syria. Its gold funded the ancient world. But Egypt's real power did not live in its army, it lived in its temples. The priests of Amun controlled more land than the pharaoh himself. For generations, they chose the pharaohs, they crowned them, they legitimized them. Amun was the hidden god, the invisible force behind all creation. Hundreds of gods filled the Egyptian world. Each had a place, each had a purpose. This was the system, stable, eternal, backed by 3,000 years of tradition. Then, in 1353 BCE, a new pharaoh took the throne. His name was Amenhotep II. And from his first day on the throne, something was very, very different. He was not worshipping the gods of Egypt, he was worshipping the sun itself. Not as a symbol of Amun, not as part of the pantheon, as the only god. In 4 years, he would shut the temples, close the festivals, stop the offerings. He would erase the name of Amun from every wall in Egypt, personally. And then he would do something no pharaoh had ever done, ever. He would build an entirely new city from scratch in less than 2 years. In his 5th year on the throne, Amenhotep IV made an announcement. He changed his name from Amenhotep, Amun is satisfied, to Akhenaten. Akhenaten, it means effective spirit of the Aten, one God, one name. He declared the Aten was not one god among many. The Aten was the only god. All the other gods? They were fictions, dangerous ones, to be erased. Across Egypt, workers climbed ladders with chisels. They had orders from the pharaoh. Not just Amun, every god with a name not Aten was at risk. Every temple closed. Imagine, the Nile floods every year. The festivals mark it, the temples time it. When Akhenaten closed the temples, he did not just offend the priests. He dismantled 3,000 years of cosmic order in a single decree. The priests were dismissed, the festivals cancelled, the offerings redirected. The temple estates, 1/3 of Egypt's farmland, were seized by the crown. It was not just religion, it was an economic revolution, a power transfer. Akhenaten did not ask for consensus. He did not negotiate. He commanded. He chose the site personally. He rode his chariot to the place and declared it sacred. This land had no history, no old gods, no temples. It belonged to Aten alone. The city rose from the ground in under 2 years. 50,000 people moved in. Workers, artisans, scribes, soldiers, an entire civilization transplanted overnight. And at the center of it all, the temple, open to the sky, no roof. The Aten does not hide, the Aten does not whisper, the Aten blazes in the open. While Akhenaten built his perfect world, the real world was sending him letters. Inside Amarna, something extraordinary was happening. A new art form was born. For 3,000 years, Egyptian art had been rigid, formal, unchanging. Amarna's artists threw out the formula. They showed the pharaoh as a human being. Nefertiti was not a decoration. She was co-ruler. Some evidence suggests she reigned alone. The Aten was not a god you feared. You could not bribe it, could not threaten it. The Aten simply was the sustaining force of all living things, impersonal, absolute. In Amarna, for 17 years, a different Egypt existed, a glimpse of something else. But 17 years is not long enough to change 3,000 years of habit. In the 4th year of Amarna, the city received a letter from the king of Babylon. It was polite, diplomatic, but it contained a question Egypt had never been asked. The Babylonian king wrote, "Where is my sister? You took her. I have heard nothing." 382 letters, kings begging, vassals pleading, enemies warning. And while they wrote, Akhenaten prayed, and the world outside Amarna began to burn. The Hittites were expanding. Egyptian vassals in Canaan were being attacked. The vassals wrote to Egypt. They needed soldiers. They needed the pharaoh's help. The letters arrived in Amarna, were catalogued and largely unanswered. Egypt had once protected its vassals. Now it watched them fall from its prayer halls. One letter from a Canaanite king said, "My lord, my city is dying. Where are you?" Egypt controlled a network of vassal city-states across Canaan and Syria. In exchange for tribute, Egypt promised protection, soldiers when needed, law. Ribhada, king of Byblos, wrote to Akhenaten 60 times. 60. His letters began formally, prostrating himself 7 times as protocol required. But by the 40th letter, the formality was cracking. "My city is being taken." By the 60th letter, Ribhada had lost his city. He died in exile. While Ribhada wrote, another vassal was secretly dealing with the enemy. Erasure wrote to Akhenaten, "I am loyal," while he was signing treaties with the Hittites. The Hittites were not asking permission, they were filling the vacuum Egypt left. Akhenaten received the letters. Some he answered, most he did not. There was no malice, no cowardice. He simply believed the Aten would provide. The great hymn to the Aten is one of the most beautiful texts in ancient history. He wrote, "How manifold are your works, hidden from before our faces." Some scholars believe this poem directly influenced the Hebrew Psalm 104. But back in 1346 BCE, the beauty of the hymn did not stop the Hittites. Egypt's empire in the north was contracting. No army was sent. No pharaoh came. In Amarna, Akhenaten did not know, perhaps did not care, that the world was changing. Year 12 of Akhenaten's reign, a grand ceremony in Amarna. All the world sent tribute. It was his greatest triumph, and it was also, in many ways, his last. Year 14. Something happened in Amarna that the records barely mention. Several of his daughters died. Then Nefertiti vanished from the official record. Year 17. Akhenaten himself vanished from the record. No announcement, nothing. Year 17. Akhenaten disappears from the historical record. No record of his death, no record of his burial. He simply stops. A figure called Smenkhare rules briefly, then vanishes too. Then a child becomes Pharaoh, his name Tutankhamun. The priests of Amun move immediately. They have waited 17 years. The child king's name is changed. Tutankhaten becomes Tutankhamun. Amarna is abandoned, the entire city emptied in a single year. The old gods return, the temples reopen, the statues are recarved. But restoring the gods is not enough. The heretic must be unmade. The hammers begin, every cartouche, every face, every name. Not just Akhenaten, Nefertiti, the daughters, the Aten itself. His city is torn apart, the stones of Amarna recycled for other temples. His name is carved from temple walls across all of Egypt. Scholars call this Damnatio Memoriae, condemnation of memory. In Egypt, obliteration from memory was worse than death itself. For 3,000 years, Akhenaten simply ceases to exist. No ancient historian names him. No temple list honors him. The greatest purge in ancient history. He never existed until he did. (1887), a peasant woman digging in the fields of Tel El Amarna. She had found the Amarna letters, 382 tablets. Those tablets ripped open 3,000 years of enforced silence. Scholars began to reassemble the man the priests had tried to erase. And what they found was extraordinary, a pharaoh unlike any other. In 1939, Sigmund Freud proposed a radical theory. Moses was Egyptian. Freud argued that Moses was a priest of Akhenaten, a follower of the one God. Scholars found something else. Psalm 104 and the hymn to the Aten nearly identical. Not proven, not disproven. The question itself is the legacy of Amarna. November 4th, 1922, Howard Carter found Tutankhamun's tomb intact. Carnarvon asked, "Can you see anything?" Carter said, "Yes, wonderful things." Tutankhamun became the most famous pharaoh in history, but there was a shadow. That shadow was Akhenaten. Tutankhamun was his son or his brother. DNA from Tutankhamun's tomb confirmed it. They shared the same bloodline. And then there is the question of Nefertiti. Where is her mummy? Nefertiti's mummy has never been identified. She remains missing. In 2015, radar scans found what may be a hidden chamber behind his tomb. Some believe it may be Nefertiti's burial chamber. The debate continues. 3,000 years of silence, and still so much we do not know. What we know, he existed. He dared to imagine one God. He was almost erased. Almost. That word, almost, is the most important word in history. Amarna lasted 17 years. Its echoes have lasted 3 millennia. The idea did not die with the city. One God and then another and then another. Thanks for watching. See you in the next episode.